Hello everyone. This is going to be a very different video from me today. I will be talking about the Magic Find design thread and what I think about it. I think there's stuff in here that works, stuff that doesn't, stuff that can be changed to work really easily, and I just want to go over it because I like Magic Find and I like yapping. So, we'll just hop right into it. So, update pillars is basically their design goals with a Magic Find revamp. So, point 1, substantially increase the base drop chances of Magic Find affected drops across the game. I'm neutral on this. I think it could be done well. I think it could be done not well at all. And I'm worried because of how they phrase it. Mare Aura showed us how accessible and enjoyable the game can be for newer players slash returning players if base drop rates are a bit higher. During Aura, they were not a bit higher. Most RNG drops were either 2x in the RNG meter, or 3x if there was Slayers, or Enchanting, whatever. And then a lot of other drops are just way more common. So when they say a bit higher, I think if they actually mean a bit higher, like maybe 25%, sure, that's fine. But if they're using aura and a bit in the same sentence, I'm worried. Anyway, point 2, reduce the amount of magic find in the game. I agree with this. I think there are some very bloated sources of magic find in the game. Most notably, G-Dreg giving 45 is a lot. Well, 45 with a relic. That's a lot. Habanero Tactics giving 60 is insane. So I definitely think there are sources of magic find in the game that can be toned down. So I agree with this. Eliminate the need for magic find swaps. This I agree with, unless it's auto pets, because we have auto pets for a reason. But when they say swaps, they basically mean like equipment swapping, armor swapping, that kind of stuff, which I do agree with. Swapping to a Rift Necklace or a David's Cloak or Sorrow Armor is annoying. Does does it add some tech to the game? Like, yeah, it does, but it's not really skill based. It's just annoying. You walk away from the rare mob, swap your stuff, and come back and kill it. It's not really more skillful. So I agree with this point. Point 4 is to make Magic Find as intuitive as possible. They will do this by moving sources of Magic Find from active sources such as armor, equipment, reforges, etc., to being passive, where you set and forget, essentially. We'll get into this later because I think some of it works and some of it really doesn't. Point 2 is reworking looting to just give Magic Find. Cool, that's fine. And then compensating looting for drops that are like rely on looting heavily, like Corleonite and Jungle Keys. This might be a hot take, but their idea of making Magic Find affect all items, I don't agree with. I think for things like Jungle Keys and Corleonite, they should just adjust the drop rate of those. Because if you do this, if you make Magic Find affect every drop the way they describe it, where you can get overflow, like extra drops, stuff like Magma Lord fragments are going to go from being kind of valuable to costing nothing because everyone's going to get like 3 or 4 times as many. Demand will go down, supply will go insane. There's other drops like that, like Thunder Shards, all this kind of stuff. I just think there's a better way to go about it. So, the pillars in action propose changes. So, first thing they do is look at player A and player B. Player A and player B are they are on the server currently. Well, not technically there. They use rates that you and I can get. So Titanoboa Shed, which is the one I'll be focusing on, is 0.2. Player A has 300 Magic Find and Looting 4, and Titanoboa Shed is 1.28. Player B has 450 Magic Find and Looting 5, which is essentially a Hypermax setup, and they get 1.93 as the drop chance. So you can see like varying levels here. So, with their new drop rates and how they want to move forward with Magic Find, you'll see that things like Can of Worms just go up, Bronze Bowl goes up, Calcified Heart goes up, which that's something. I think there's a point to be made that this is a good change, but going down to Titanoboa Shed, which is 1% now, so a 5x increase. Player C has 100 Magic Find, which doubles it. Player D has 150, which 2.5%, which I'm fine with, but what I'm not fine with, which we'll get to in a minute, is how this Magic Find is obtained and how trivial it is for these kinds of rates. So, comparison table of player A and player C. So you'll see here, player A, they got Looting 4, they got a God Potion, they got a level 200 G-Drag with a Hephaestus Relic, they're using Chimera 5, they have a fully maxed Titanoboa Bestiary, full Sorrow Armor, Booster Cookie, high Pet Score, Slayer Energy Drink, Rift Necklace, all this stuff. And then you move to player C, which is Looting 4 still, God Potion, Booster Cookie, 33% complete Titanoboa Bestiary, Skyblock levels, so level 200, Cinderbat attribute, Magic Find profile upgrade, 100 pet score. So, then we go to the very bottom, you'll see player A has around a 1.3% chance, player C has a 2% chance. I do not like this. And I do not like it because more drops that are a one-time use, at least in this example. I mean, it depends what drop, but Titanoboa Shed, as an example, is a one-time use item. You do not need multiple, you only need one. And to make it not only more common, but more common with a setup that is so bare bones and clearly not maxed. Like, let's just compare for a second. 33% complete Titanoboa Bestiary and Skyblock level 200, and they have a 2% chance. And we're comparing that to a player with a Chimera 5 weapon and a max G-Drag with a Hephaestus Relic. They have a complete Bestiary. They're swapping all this stuff in, which I don't think you should have to do, but the point still stands that they have this gear. They have 450 pet score. That's another thing, by the way, is that we're comparing a level 200 to what I can only presume is someone in like the level 400s based off of the pet score, the pet, the setup. Obviously, they don't give a level for player A, but just context clues. This is someone with good gear who's decently high level. And they're getting a 1.3% chance, and this new player who doesn't have much of anything is getting a way better chance. That's not a good thing. Because if that expands to every drop across the game that are one-time uses, those drops are going to tank in price. That's just the fact of the matter, and people might hear that and go, good, but when you're doing M7 and it's 20 mil an hour, when you're doing Blaze Slayer and it's 10 mil an hour, and then you have farming which can go up to 70 mil an hour, it's not good. It's not a good thing for the game. So another thing I want to go over is down here. So they're basically saying that player A is pet locked to Golden Dragon, necklace locked, cloak, all this stuff. Saying that someone is pet, like the Rift Necklace, David's Cloak, and Sorrow Armor, sure, I agree. But to say that someone is pet locked to Golden Dragon and item locked to their Chimera 5 weapon that's not really a good thing because we have auto pets. I don't know about anyone watching this video, but if I fight a Lord Jawbus or a Wiki Tiki or just a Slayer boss, I'll be using a G-Drag no matter what, because it does the most damage. I'm not going to fight Lord Jawbus, a mob with a 100 million HP, with a Squid Pet. That is silly. So, to say that you're pet locked to Golden Dragon, it's not really. It's painting it in a very negative light that really isn't necessary, because most people are going to use a G-Drag no matter what, which we'll touch on G-Drag and the flaws of how they're handling it in this design thread later. Chimera 5 weapon is the same thing. Not everyone has, say, a Chimera 5 Flaming Flay, but having two weapons in your hotbar and just final hitting it with, say, a Daedalus, that's not in the same tier as having to swap out your whole equipment set or to swap to Sorrow Armor. It's a few buttons. So, again, I agree with some of what they're saying. I think equipment swapping and armor swapping should be either gotten rid of, or in the case of armor swapping, like some armor sets should be improved so you don't need to armor swap. But G-Drag and Chimera 5, they're not in that same boat, in my opinion. So, we're moving on to proposed sources of magic find. So, unconditional magic find, which is stuff that you will basically always have active, or it's something like, say, the Century Cake, where you go recharge it. It's a lot of the same stuff, God Potion, Magic Find account upgrade, talismans, that kind of stuff. There is a new thing here. So, every 20 Skyblock levels, you'll gain one Magic Find. This is, I don't think it's the best idea. As a max level person, I'd like it. I mean, wow, I'm max level, I get a bunch of magic find. But I've seen the point made that someone who, say, sweats fishing, who isn't max level, being just automatically worse off than a max level player. It is kind of dumb. I agree. So I don't agree with this. I think the idea could be repurposed into like the book of progression could give magic find, or it could have a magic find option to it, like how you pick a buff and put book of progression. There could be a magic find one in there that's unlocked later. There's options. I don't think this is the worst idea ever. I just think it should be tweaked to not be so linear, where high level good, lower level bad, and there's nothing you can do about it. The other thing I don't like in here is the divine gift change, where it's a consumable. Because divine gift, it's never been an issue with swapping, really, unless we're going back to the example where you swap, like you final hit something with one weapon, which I don't think is a big issue. Because divine gift can be put on any weapon. If you want to do Blaze Slayer, you can put divine gift on your Blaze Daggers. If you want to do Enderman Slayer, you can put it on your Atom Split, or your Daedalus, or Flaming Flay. Like, there's options. Divine gift isn't for one specific weapon. And every time you want to put it on a weapon, that's 100 mil, which is a really good money sink. I myself have probably bought Divine Gift for 5 or 6 weapons. And changing that into a consumable, which probably won't even stay 100 mil, let's be honest, considering some of the other things they suggest in this thread, I don't think this will stay 100 mil. I don't like that. And before someone goes, oh, you just don't want to lose the money, I do not care about being refunded for the Divine Gift. I bought it forever ago. I just don't really care. I just think it's bad for a pretty well known money sink to just poof and be gone. Because a lot of people put Divine Gift on multiple weapons or just on one for 100 mil. And that is a lot of money that just gets drained out of the game just like that, which I think is a very good thing. And to take that away, along with other changes in here, it's just I think if this change were to go through, which I know it's a proposal and that they aren't working on it, but if these changes did go through, I think we would enter an era where inflation spikes up and deflation would have to be reintroduced in other ways. I think it's best to just avoid that. So, moving on to conditional magic find, it's also a lot of the same stuff. It's pretty much just mob specific magic find. Stuff like Crown of Avarice for mythological mobs, Bestiary, the Habanero tactics, attributes, that kind of stuff. They did change Bobbin Time. Now grants 1% all fishing stats, +1 magic find, and +1 tracking. I think Bobbin Time, I think the best way to go about Bobbin Time is for the fishing stats to be based off bobbers, for it to grant flat magic find, just like Habanero Tactics does to Slayers, but just to sea creatures instead, and then tracking to sea creatures as well. Because I don't know why the admins die on this hill, but like basing magic find off the bobbers near you, it doesn't help. Because as soon as you catch a rare sea creature, no one is fishing anymore because they're all fighting the rare mob. So it should just be a flat amount of magic find. Tracking is the exact same reason, though I guess tracking matters less because you would actually be fishing, but for magic find it should just be like habanero tactics of flat amount against sea creatures. Okay, small rant aside. We'll move on. They are also doing the like Slayer pets, like Hound Pet, Tarantula Pet. I don't know why Ghoul isn't mentioned in here. It's literally just Hound and Tarantula. But they want to give them Magic Find on their respective Slayers. I fully support this, but because of a change to G Drag, I have to say it's bad because it will introduce a lot of pet swapping and ones that you won't it won't be ones you can do automatically with an auto pet. It will be things where you equip like an armor set or you throw a fishing hook to equip the pet. So it's not really automatic, but you have to manually do it. I like the idea because I think G-Drag being so far ahead of every other pet in Magic Find is bad and not good balance. But we'll get into G-Drag later, and I will bring this up again. So moving on to the proposed removed sources Magic Find. This is a pretty long list. This will probably be most of the video. So Annihilation Cloak. I'm fine with its base Magic Find being gone, but they don't do anything for it. I really think it should give Magic Find towards Slayers. I really think that would be a good change for it. For the longest time now, it's basically been begging for a change like that. You get it from Blaze Slayer. It's a good cloak, but worse than David's for damage. It would fit right in as just 5 Magic Find to Slayers. Black Cat Pet, they are not fully decided yet. I've seen people say it should give tracking, and it can go from the Magic Find pet to the tracking pet. I agree with that, but it needs to be with the condition that a fishing pet, maybe flying fish, also has a tracking like a tracking perk that gives it tracking towards sea creatures. Because if Black Cat is the only pet in the game that gives tracking, except Griffin, but that's locked to Diana, Black Cat will probably become the meta for fishing, which I don't think is good game design. I think, you should be using a fishing pet for fishing. Hot take alert. Hot take alert. I'm not against it having tracking though. I think we just need that caveat of a fishing pet surpasses it for fishing only in tracking. Blaze Pet, now Nether Embodiment, only increases combat stats. I'm not sure how to feel about this. I think it's fine, but there needs to be a bigger discussion about pets and like them giving Magic Find, because this design thread basically nukes every pet and says none of them will give Magic Find except a few for specific things. So I would want to revisit this when there's a more concrete idea. Not against it, I'm not for it, I'm more neutral on it. Clover Helmet, my goat. My goat, the Clover Helmet. This might take a while too. Shen items became a misstep in design when they ended up becoming best in slot items worth tens of billions of coins instead of fun meme items that served as a coin sink for the economy. We haven't yet decided upon what to do with Clover Helmet and are open to ideas. Starting out, because that is, as a Clover Helmet owner, that is a lot. Like, people might say I'm overreacting, but that is a lot to read. So if Clover Helmet was conceived as a meme item, why would it be given such a good niche of you spend a lot of money and you get slightly more Magic Find? Because that is a solid niche for an item. I mean, it's the whole greed aspect. You spend all this money for a tiny stat increase that won't pay itself back. That's the whole point of it. Then there's the other part of that where if it's meant to be a meme item, why would people buy it for a lot? Like, they say it's meant to be a huge coin sink, but if it's a meme, like Priceless the Fish, the Wizard's Wand, the Dirt Rod, those are all meme items, but they don't really sink that much money because, they're meme items. People aren't going to spend that much. But Giant Rod and Clover Helmet were actually viable to a degree, mostly. So people actually did spend a bunch of money on them. There's also the issue that, well, yes, Clover is best in slot for Magic Find. That's not really a bad thing. There isn't much Magic Find gear in the game. I will say though that I do see the issue of it being a swap item. So we'll go through their two solutions and I'll give my feedback on those. So first up, becomes a toggleable accessory. They say that, this will be an issue because talismans give Skyblock XP. You could just make it like the radio, the Blaze Tech radio, I mean, where like it's kind of its own thing. That also doesn't really solve anything because whether you swap in a Clover helmet or you toggle on this talisman idea, it's the same thing. You only activate it when it's helpful to you. If anything, this would make it even easier because you just go into your inventory, right click it once and right click it, you wouldn't even I don't know. It's the same thing. That's what I'm trying to say. This doesn't solve anything. Point 2 might be even worse though. Becomes a helmet used for something else. We have a number of updates coming out, some introducing new stats. This could see a use there. I am very against this because I and pretty much every other Clover helmet owner bought it for the magic find, not for it to give a random stat later on that we have no idea was going to be a thing. Clover helmet should be tied to magic find. At some point, I had conceived an idea for it, and basically giving the TLDR because I don't want to go on like a 20-minute rant. Clover helmet should be a helmet that when you equip it, there should be a debuff for unequipping it, which would solve the swapping issue. And upon equipping it, it should have another debuff on top of that where just wearing it hurts you in a certain way, whether that be taking more damage or something like that. Something where it's not something not annoying, basically. Because -5% all other stats, I'm gonna be honest, it's more obnoxious than like hurtful because say you're doing Diana. It's just less intel to fly around. You don't need the EHP, you don't need the damage really. It's just annoying more than anything. But making that a like you take more damage debuff, that would actually like change something and would make it would be a payoff. Because Clover Helmet is a very swap intensive item. As someone who uses it, that is what you do. You throw it on last second, you get the buff, you take it off, and you go back to using a good helmet. So to change that into a helmet where you need to have it on, or else like swapping it in, making basically the interaction of swapping it should debuff you. Keeping it on its own should give a different debuff that's more damage oriented and that you like maybe die easier, that kind of thing. Whereas taking the helmet off is where the you start subtracting stats. I think that would fix Clover Helmet from being a swap item to kind of like a pseudo hard mode, basically. Like if you took more damage, I mean. Because then you would be doing Slayers with a helmet that actively makes you take more damage. You wouldn't get combat stats from it, really, except for what you reforge it to. All that kind of stuff. Which I think would be really good for the game, especially for Clover helmet owners who famously have a ton of stats and that the stat debuff doesn't really matter. So, like, doing that, I don't know. I'm sure what I want from a Clover helmet update, if they're going to change the item, is to not treat it as a meme item. Because it's not that. They can say it was a meme item, and it is a meme item in the sense that you spend tens of billions on it for 5% magic find. That's the meme aspect. That is where the meme aspect stops, and it turns into an actual item with actual metas and with genuine reason to use it. So that's what I hope for. Just treat Clover Helmet with a little bit of respect, man. Please. Because it's really not as bad as people think it is in progression. It's a very harmless item compared to things like Hyperion, with actively ruin a lot of content. So, David's Cloak, removed Magic Find base stat. The best in slot hunting and foraging cloak doesn't also need MF to make it best in slot for other activities, was a commonly seen sentiment upon Galatea's release, and we agree wholeheartedly. So why are we talking about it now? You should have done it back when that update came out, man. Okay, crashing out aside. I like this. It's good. Delirium cloak. I think that's a necklace, no? Am I crazy? I swear it's not a cloak. Anyway, I think it only gave one magic find, and the equipment piece has no metas involved in it, so who cares? Destruction cloak, same thing I said for annihilation, just make it give magic find on slayers. Dragon horn, which is the renowned reforge. Renowned is currently best in slot for magic find due to it increasing your final magic find stat by up to 1.04x. I see what they mean, but I think I think nerfing Renowned comes from a place of like only having an overview of it because in like practically using it, here's the setup. You will have a Crimson set and it will have Renowned on it because having a Crimson set with Ancient and a Crimson set with Renowned is annoying because where Renown's power really comes from is that you can throw it on another armor set that you swap to, and that like Sorrow, that you're already going to be swapping to Sorrow, and then Renowned has no negative. But when you're doing something like Slayers, where you're already just using one armor set, Renowned goes from a swap thing to a trade-off of I'm not going to use Ancient, I'm going to use Renowned and get a little more damage. Or the other way around, I'm going to sacrifice a bit of Magic Find and I'm going to get more damage with Ancient. Because in most cases, people don't really swap because of Renowned. Renowned is just kind of an extra step thrown in there on top of like Sorrow armor. I think it could go either way. I do see their point. I just think in a lot of situations, people don't swap to Renowned. They're swapping to Sorrow armor, and Renowned happens to be on it. Ender Dragon Pet. I think Ender Dragon Pet, I've never heard of people using it for Magic Find. That's just me though. Maybe I'm not in the know. It's almost as expensive as G-Drag, so G-Drag's just the better option. So I don't really mind. Enrichments. Removed the Magic Find enrichment. I'm torn on this one. Because on one hand, Magic Find enrichments are harmless. They don't fall into that swapping category they talk about, really. Because once you set your enrichments to something, you can easily swap them to something else with the enrichment swapper. You can do that on a whim. However, if they did remove Magic Find enrichments, that would actually open up a surprising amount of build diversity. Fishing would give Sea Creature chance, like the enrichment, I mean. And then you could actually use pets that aren't an Ammonite, which would be pretty cool, I can't lie. And then for combat, I mean, you could do strength, you could do crit damage, you could do attack speed if you need it, you could do ferocity, you could do health or defense, of course. Like, every enrichment might actually see some use instead of crit chance in dungeons or speed, and then magic find outside of it. So I could see these going. Entropy Suppressor no longer grants magic find. I mean, people have said to just make it only give magic find to Blaze Slayer, which, yeah, that works for me. Otherwise, I don't really care because Cold Fused gave 2 magic find, which would make it best in slot if they like left it alone. So I'm fine with them getting rid of it, but 2 magic find doesn't do anything, so it's not losing a lot. Goblin Pet, remove magic find base stat, sure. And here we go. The Golden Dragon Pet. They have removed all of its magic find. G-Drag is the most problematic source of magic find perhaps in the entire game, accounting for a massive amount of obtainable magic find that's locked to the pet, meaning you need to pet swap to it for a massive amount of activities. Removing the magic find from G-Drag is perhaps the single most foundational change that would need to occur as part of a revamp. Yeah. Okay, so problem 1. People don't swap to G-Drag in a lot of like this hypothetical massive amount of situations because dungeons you just use a G-Drag, Kudra you just use a G-Drag, Slayers using auto pets that actually function as auto pets and not like a rod swap, you use G-Drag. You spawn with I don't know, a tarantula, a hound, a ghoul. And then when your boss spawns, then you equip a G-Drag automatically. So if they mean that, that's kind of a dumb point because that's what auto pets are for. For fishing, you can do a similar thing with a combat pet rule where it equips G-Drag, and then when you cast again, it's your fishing pet. But when they say you have to pet swap to G-Drag, I don't know what they're talking about exactly because in most situations, you're using G-Drag anyway. So that part I don't get. The part I do get, though, is that it gives a ton of magic find. Because G-Drag can give up to 30 base with like 100 mil gold. Put a Hephaestus relic on it, you get it up to 45. Using Chimera, that doubles it. And then from there, you're at 90, which is a bit ridiculous. However, I don't think removing Magic Find will solve much aside from just introducing more swaps. Because going back to their conditional sources, if Hound Pet and Tarantula Pet give Magic Find on those Slayer bosses, you will fight them with G-Drag, like you usually do, and then last second you'll Rod Swap to those pets. This change to G-Drag will introduce more swaps to the game, which I'm guessing is not what they want. So here's my take on it. G-Drag should remain the best pet for Magic Find. I'm thinking change Tarantula Pet and Hound down to 10, have G-Drag cap out at 15. So G-Drag's the best, and it's a way smaller number. Now from there, I know what people are thinking. It's still buffed by Chimera. That's a ridiculous difference. There was an idea I saw by someone called Hot Men Feet, which that's a name, but you know, good for them. And basically we need to create stats where mythological magic find is a thing. It's a stat, I mean. Mining mob magic find. Basically, imagine if the Griffin Pet's 20 magic find on mythological creatures could be boosted by Chimera. That's what I'm getting at. Imagine if the Tarantula Pet's 20 magic find on spiders could be boosted by Chimera. All of a sudden, G-Drag could be the best, and it wouldn't have Chimera boosting it far ahead of everything else. G-Drag can be the best, but barely. Because that's where the dragon pets should be, in my opinion. The Rose Dragon is well designed. Because, yes, it's better than Hedgehog. Yes, it's better than Mushroom, Elephant, all of those. But it's not by much. It's by enough where using it is good, and it matters, but it's not 90 magic find versus the black cat that gives like 15, 30 with Chimera. G-Drag having magic find is not a problem. What is a problem was how much it gave and how much that it meant they would need to boost other new sources. Like when the Griffin pet was put on alpha and it had 20 magic find and people were calling for it to have 90, 100 because it needed to pass G-Drag so we could actually use it and not lose rates. G-Drag needs to be nerfed down to where the other pets are and then put slightly above them. So it's still the best, but not by a ton. That way, you can actually balance around it. If you introduce, like, let's say G-Drag gave 15, and that's just its amount. Now the Griffin pet can give 20, and it's better. It's not equal. You don't have to boost its numbers by a bunch. It's just better. You don't have to, you can just ignore the ferocity swap because no one will do it anymore. That's what I think should happen to G-Drag. Because G-Drag is the combat pet, and people might not agree with this, but Magic Find is linked to combat. It has uses in fishing, and it all involves killing things. Mining, you use it on Skathas or on Diamond Goblins or on automatons. You're killing them. It's combat. So for G-Drag, the best combat pet to not have Magic Find is kind of a spit in the face. And they said, oh, we can buff its damage. It doesn't need more damage. It's already leagues ahead of every other damage option. It wouldn't change anything just buffing its damage. It would still just be there, and people would, you'd gain a bunch of damage that's really shouldn't be put in the game in the first place. But with the idea of keeping it the best for Magic Find, but to a much closer degree to other pets, I think it would work far better than what we have right now, and for what they're like planning to remove its Magic Find. That's what I think. That's my take. We're done ranting about the G-Drag, and we'll move on to the Grandma Knitting Needle and, by association, the Grandma Wolf Pet. So, again, no longer grants Magic Find. I think this is weird because Grandma Wolf Pet isn't something you swap to. like at all. You just get it passively. And they say, the pet was never intended to be used in an unintuitive way that it has come to be, so we're simplifying it. I wouldn't call, because I assume they're talking about people that go and get kill combos in Diana before coming back and killing their mob. I wouldn't call that outright unintuitive. It's crazy. That much is true. That's insane to do for every single rare mob you get. But to say it's unintuitive isn't really true. I mean, you have a kill combo that boosts your magic find. You have a mob that you want rare drops from. And you have places like the crypts and the ruins where you can actually get a kill combo. It's not unintuitive. It's crazy and a bit extra, but if someone wants to be extra, I say let them. Because Grandma Wolfpet isn't a swap thing. That and Grandma Wolfpet has uses in grinding ghosts because you can actually like preserve your kill combo. I'm fine if they replace it with combat wisdom and coins, but I think it's very nuclear that they're going for Grandma Wolfpet because it's not a swapping thing. It just feels like they're getting rid of something because people are like using it in really extra ways for more rates, which personally I don't bother with it, but if someone wants to, I have no problem with that. Hephaestus Relic no longer increases magic find. This is very similar to the G-Drag where, like, if this change goes through, Hephaestus Relic is just useless, and they even say that themselves. This is more of a placeholder change until we can find a meaningful rework. Like, you can't just gut an item and go, nah, we'll fix it later. Like, come up with something, man. I do agree that it buffing magic, it has Chimera, and G-Drag have a very bad balance relationship in this game. Because G-Drag's already the best. Hephaestus Relic really only applies to G-Drag. You could put it on a Black Cat, but it's the G-Drag item. That's the best way I can put. And then Chimera just doubles all that. It's very bad for balance. That much is true. What I would say, and this is probably a hot take for some people, I think Hephaestus Relic should just be the magic find item. Maybe Minos Relic can give 5 magic find, Hephaestus can give 10. Because that gets rid of the issue where it's only good for G-Drag. It'll stay good for G-Drag, but it can be good for any pet. Let's say someone can't get a G-Drag yet. They're using like a Tarantula pet. Put a Hephaestus Relic on it and it'll give 10 magic find. And then that's also boosted by Chimera, which means you'll be in the same situation. It'll be a flat number. It won't be scaling. It won't scale with G-Drag. It won't scale with certain things. So it'd still be good for magic find, especially in this vision where we have less total magic find, where 10 would be probably more powerful than 15. That might need to be changed. That's just my take, though. I think that would work better because right now it's very much a dynamic where you have G-Drag that's good, Hephaestus Relic boosts that, Chimera boosts that, and then G-Drag is leagues ahead of everything else. G-Drag should start out earlier, or not earlier, but with a smaller number of magic find. Hephaestus Relic can then bump that up a little, but it can also bump up any pet. And then from there, Chimera follows suit, and it's good for every pet, and not just G-Drag. I think while we're on the topic of that, I should go over Chimera because they just don't mention it in here. Assuming they do these changes, no pet would have base magic find, and that would gut Chimera completely. I'm surprised they don't mention that because that is a very big deal. Because most of the profit you get from Diana is Chimera books. Any Diana player would probably tell you that. So if Chimera tanks in price, which it would, because it's used for magic find mostly, then Diana stops being a good money making method, which I don't think is a good thing for an event. So the thing with Chimera that makes it problematic is that it only pairs with G-Drag. At least mostly. You can use it with other pets, but it pairs with G-Drag mostly because it just copies the pet stats, and no other pet really has the kind of stats G-Drag does that are so high. So, following my idea, you would have a situation where G-Dreg has, at most, 15 Magic Find. Hephaestus Relic could give any pet 10, so G-Dreg would go up to 25. Chimera would then bump that up to 50. But then in turn, you would have something like the Tarantula pet, where on spiders you could still get up to 40. It might be a bit it might be a bit unfair to say, someone's going to use Chimera 5 and a Tarantula pet, but it's a possibility. Basically, it would lower that it would make the pets closer, is what I'm getting at. This has kind of been like a long-winded rant on Golden Dragon, Relic, Chimera, all that. I think that is the best way to go where G-Drag is slightly above everything else, but got like taking Hephaestus Relic, which then in turn helps Chimera, and making it for all pets is a good cutoff. That's really the problem, is that G-Drag scales off of so much stuff compared to other pets. Because the other pets, they don't have it as a base stat. I mean, even if they gave the Tarantula that 20 Magic Find, that wouldn't be a base stat. It couldn't scale off of Chimera. So, that's my take on it. We'll move on. Jerry Candy no longer grants Magic Find. It's fine. I don't really mind. Legion Enchant now only increases combat stats. I think, personally, I think this is okay. I know some people might call it a bad change, and I do think there's merit to that. But Legion would still be the best in dungeons. It would still be the best in Kudra, and that's probably it, honestly. Maybe other niche things. But really, what all this would affect is Diana. So, I choked on something for a second there. This would really only affect Diana. And I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, especially if the goal is to lower Magic Find, because Legion is a modifier. It would mean that Wisdom just kind of by default becomes the best, because more intel means more flying around. So there is a backup to Legion if that change were to go through. I'm fine with whatever they do. If it keeps Magic Find, it keeps Magic Find. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't mind either option. Lucky Clover is a smiley face. They say that it's going to be changed with an upcoming update, which is why I think is a great time for Hephaestus Relic and Minos Relic to take over the role of Magic Find pet item, and why I think that would be such a seamless change. So, yeah. Lucky Dice reworked to be basically the treasure fishing reforge. I think that's good. I think that's really good. Mammoth Pet, who cares? If you use a Mammoth Pet, feel free to correct me in the comments. I don't think anyone uses it. Miner's Blessing Heart of the Mountain perk goes from 30 Magic Find to +1 drop from the Nucleus. I think this is really good. For a while now, I've always kind of thought, of all the perks in the Heart of the Mountain tree, why does one not more drops from the Nucleus? So I think that's a very solid replacement. Minos Relic, we've been over. Mithril Golem, Refined Senses renamed to Ghostbuster, has a 5% chance to drop Mithril Powder when killing a ghost. I think that's good. I think it's good for there to be a late game active option for gaining Mithril Powder. Someone would have to actually test the rates, but I think you can get 5,000 ghost kills an hour, so what would that be? 1/20th drop it, so 250 ghosts would drop powder. That's solid. I think that could go well. Mole Pet loses base Magic Find, but Magnetic Nose now grants 10 Magic Find on automatons. Personally, and maybe this brings Mole Pet out of that Nucleus niche a bit, but I think this should be for other mining mobs. Like Ghosts, Skathas, Corleone, Bal if you want. I don't know if Bal even takes Magic Find, but that kind of thing. Mining mobs. Goblins too, that kind of thing. I think it'd be nice to see Mole Pet kind of break out of that Nucleus niche, because if you don't do Nucleus runs, Mole Pet's just kind of there, so it'd be a cool side option for it. Slayer Energy Drink. goes from 10 magic find to 5 defense. I think that is a very useless, unhelpful buff, and that it really wasn't creative to do that. But, I think I'm not sure what you could add to it. You could literally just throw any stat at the wall. I guess their dart landed on defense, so whatever. Rat pet. This is kind of like this is what I think they see the grandma wolf pet as, which I don't really mind if they get rid of it. I think it's interesting that they're getting rid of the magic find, but not the ability to loot share drops, which is kind of the reason people even use the rat pet, is to do that. So, Rift necklace, not fully decided yet. The Rift necklace is directly marketed as the best necklace in the game in some in-game menus. So the question has to be asked of whether this is still true if it loses its magic find. The answer is yes, by the way. Perhaps it could keep it well in the Rift at the very least. Hard agree, that would be great. Other ideas we have floating around are to allow this piece to become divine and maybe buff its combat stats up a little bit. Perfect solution. I think we should have more items, especially if they're meant to be best in slot, like the Rift necklaces, that are just divine. Slightly more reforged stats, and it stands out. So, giving it a little more combat stats and +1 rarity, great solution. I think it would work great. Sorrow armor. I'm glad this one's gone. Sorrow armor no longer has base magic find, but now has a tiered bonus granting magic find and increased damage versus ghosts. I like this, and just as I said with the mole pet, I think it would be even better if it was also for Skatha's automatons mining mobs. Because just ghosts it's kinda niche. Whereas if you include it for automatons, that gives Sorrow viability for gathering nucleus stuff. Do it for Skatha's, self-explanatory. And then goblins, same thing, that kind of stuff. Sorrow was the most problematic armor when it came to magic find swapping due to giving it unconditional magic find. Hard agree, and I pointed this out months ago. They did nothing about it. SMH, bro. SMH. So we're getting rid of that and giving it a niche on ghosts. We hope that the set, when paired with Mythic Mithril Golem's Ghostbuster perk, will make ghosts a more viable way of grinding mithril powder for stronger players. Agree, and I think this would go very well if they did that. Superior Dragon Armor now only increases combat stats. Remember when this was the best in slot mining armor for a while upon Crystal Hollow's release? I do. That was a very silly time. It would become meta again for Magic Find following this update if it wasn't once again changed. True, but it's kind of just whatever. So, it's been a few days. I'm very late to this discussion. I've been at war on the forums, if anyone is watching from the forums. So, we'll go over the FAQ because I actually haven't looked at this all that much and it might be something I'll react to. Why should newer players get RNG drops as quickly as me? I've been playing for years. They still won't. Drop rates across the game are traditionally static, meaning that the same two players killing the same mob. Oh yeah, this, okay. So they go to make the point that yes, Magic Find will be equal, basically. Player efficiency will determine if people get drops. I think this is a very not correct viewpoint. They use the example of a level 500 player, a level 250, and a level 25. And right off the bat, I just want to say the level 25 can just be ignored from this situation because anyone that's actually level 25 is not grinding anything. A Titanoboa will eat them. They will die. I have seen it play out in the Bayou hundreds of times of a low-level person literally being eaten by a Titanoboa. So, we'll just ignore that. And the thing that I don't like, we'll go to the TLDR. Player efficiency means that stronger players can roll for rare drops more frequently outside of boss content, with, dungeons, that kind of stuff. Even if every player had the exact same magic find, which they never will, yeah, I'm not sure about that. The stronger players will have better rates over a prolonged period of time on account of their ability to roll for said drops more frequently. Now, This is correct. Compare me to someone with half my fishing stats, and they will not get as many drops as me. That is true. What isn't true is that the price of these items will stay the same, because if they bump up all the drop rates, I think I went over this at the beginning. Basically, having Magic Find be a passive thing where everyone has between 100 and like 150, it means that that gap between end game and early game is practically non-existent, which means yes, early game players might not get as many Titanoboas an hour. They are still getting way, way more drops than they normally would. And that means the prices of those things will tank, because the large portion of the player base that before would get drops very rarely and very slowly is now going to be getting them at, we'll say, half the rate of an endgame player. Especially if you factor in like player density, where they'll be making more of the item than endgame players. With things like slayers and fishing, if this change were to go out, the those items like Warden Heart, Titanoboa Shed, Tiki Mask, Primordial Eye, those things will tank in price because everyone only needs one. And all these people that before would have to grind hours and hours and hours to get their one, they'll get it really quick in a few hours. They'll be done. And then when they continue to do that content, they'll get more and more and more and just dump them into the economy. So I think this is a very misguided approach, and that this TLDR misses the point where yes, endgame players will get more drops, but the density of drops being brought into the game will tank the price of everything. And all combat content will basically just die, and we'll have a farming meta. Does the new system only make backwater bayou drops more common? Yeah, I wonder. Proof of concept. Yeah, duh. What happens to Magic Find now? Will more be added? Yes, more Magic Find will continue to be added to the game regardless of what happens with this proposed update, but only in ways we deem healthy. As mentioned previously, this would take the form of set and forget items such as attributes, consumables, and so on and so forth. This highlights the issue even more because that small amount of Magic Find that endgame players would currently have over people is going to matter less and less and less as more updates come out and more attributes come out, which means that issue of drop, what did I even say? It's like drop density. Yeah, that's it. Drop density. Like drop density and how many people are getting these drops. It's just going to get worse and worse. We'll reach a point where NPCing a vial for 5 mil would quite possibly be a thing people do. We feel that attributes are a particularly healthy expression of Magic Find on account of them being able to give Magic Find on mobs of certain types. I agree with this. I think it's a nice small buff, and that if they did it for like every mob type, it'd be cool. We think this is fun and introduces a healthy element of optimization. Not really. You just kind of get the attribute and you have it. I wouldn't say that's optimizing. With players being able to get more Magic Find on mobs with many types, Titanoboa would theoretically benefit from 3 different attributes. I like that idea. I think especially like making that a thing would be cool. That would actually be some level of optimization, I'd say. But needing to put in the prep first, yeah. I agree with parts of this. I think it's very misguided and it's very short-term viewpoint. At least like in certain aspects. Obviously, there are parts of this that would be great for the long-term health of the game, and there are parts of this that I feel won't be great for the long-term health of the game, especially when it comes to like combat content and the incentive to do it. I just bought Divine Gift / Magic Find Enrichments. What happens now? If this update was released, you'd likely be able to put weapons with Divine Gift in the reclaim menu. Yep, whatever. I don't know why people want a Magic Find Enrichment refund. Just give them a swapper. 200 bits. There you go. There's your refund, buckaroo. This might be its own little topic. What about dyes? We will take a look at dyes as part of this update, and for Magic Find affected dyes, likely buff their drop rates. We'll also look at any dies that are still exceedingly rare long after the release of the Artist Abode and buff their base rates too. Anyone who watches my channel knows I've been grinding some dies. And let me tell you, this is the craziest and also the scariest news because I I think it'll be fine. I think especially if they actually communicate with like the community, especially people that grind dies, this could go really well. Quick bullet list on dies that need to be reworked. Slayer dies. Make them affected by Magic Find, brochachos. I beg of you. Pelt die. Same thing. Move at source, too. I hate grinding trapper mobs. It's so unrewarding. Celadon die. Worst thing ever. I hate Celadon die. All my homies hate Celadon die. That stuff gotta be moved, man. What else is there? What else is there? Oh, let me think. Let me think. I'm thinking real hard right now. Wild Strawberry die. Does Rarefinder work on that? Or Rose Dragon? If it does, it's cool. It's all good. Mocha die. You're the witch, man. You're the witch. I'm praying. I'm praying. Secret die. That one just popped into my head. They got to do something about Secret die, man. 1 in a million secrets. That's already a lot, but it only drops from chests and bats. Not the item drops. Probably not the Wither Essence. What are we doing, man? How am I supposed to get that? Okay, I've been ranting for a bit. So, actually summing it up is Slayer dies. Should it be affected by Magic Find? Celadon and Pelt die. Be really nice if their sources got moved somewhere else that's less boring. And then Secret die just needs like changes to its functionality, basically. I think it coming from secrets works. I think the fact that it's 1 million secrets and only half of them actually roll for the die, not so good. So that's the whole thread. I tried to actually give feedback on this. This is probably going to be a really long video. So I do think a lot of stuff in here works. I know I've been kind of bashing on certain things. I think that some things deserve to be bashed on a bit for being silly. But I think a lot of this has potential and just needs minor changes. I think some stuff like oh, what have they done to my son, bro? No, no, no. I do think there's potential here, and I think changes to Magic Find are not only inevitable but needed. I just think it's about balancing how it favors parts of the player base because if I'm going to be honest, this design thread is kind of it's just fully against like late in endgame where they don't get anything from it. And if you're early game, it's very much like fully stacked in your favor of like, oh yeah, you're just gonna have their rates now, and they're gonna be a little slightly better, which I'm not a fan of. I think what did work about Magic Find before is that there was progression to it. I think it was flawed in the sense that there was way too many big sources that were in the late game, like G-Drag, Habanero Tactics, that kind of stuff. But I think the idea of late game items giving small amounts of Magic Find as an optimization is not a flaw, and instead it's a good thing. Again, my rant on G-Drag, it should be the best, not by much. Habanero Tactics, I like that it got nerfed, but still gives Magic Find. It's a small optimization you can make later down the road. I don't think it's good for the game if your Magic Find is solely based on level and everything else is obtained just by existing. So that's my take on it. I'm sure people will disagree because, you know, how dare you not want everyone ever to get drops, but hey, that's my opinion. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, it's just a proposal. They aren't rolling this out to alpha just like they said, but I do hope that they revisit parts of this and overhaul it a bit to be less how it is right now. That's all for me right now. So, if you like hearing me yap, honestly, I'd be down to do it more because I like yapping, especially when it's something like this that I actually feel strongly about. So, If you like me yapping, feel free to like, all that stuff, blah blah blah. The red button, it calls to you, I say. So that'll be it for me. Bye bye.
A couple things I can um, 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 um,